Hello everyone. So it's 11 o'clock Eastern time. Thanks for everyone who showed up for our webinar on new features for versions 5.7 and 6.0 of Margill Loan Manager. I'm Margill Loan. I'm the CEO, and I'll be presenting this to you guys today. Hopefully you'll enjoy. It's about 45 minutes, so we'll have plenty of time to cover everything. So let's jump right into it. Start recording here. Okay. This video is on just a few things beforehand, a few housekeeping elements. So this is on YouTube. So we suggest your resolution be 720, which is kind of old, or 1020p. You won't be able to ask any questions during the webinar, but really, if you have any questions, send your support your emails to support@margill.com. The webinar is being recorded, and it will be available online on YouTube and in our Margill knowledge base. So we're going to cover a bunch of things in this 45 minutes, and you'll notice that not everything will be relevant to your needs. So really just jot down what isn't of interest to you, and you can push further into it later on and investigate a bit more. And of course, as you know, those of you who know us, we're always available to help you out. Logistical questions. When you need assistance, don't write to me or to David or to the technical people. Always write to support@margill.com. This email is monitored. Somebody's on holiday, somebody's not there, it's the weekend or whatever. We don't support on the weekends usually, but sometimes we do. Always write to support@margill.com. And if you don't hear from us within 24 hours, but for real, it's less than that. We answer very quickly. What could have happened is either the email went to spam or to trash, who knows? So we always respond quickly. And if you don't hear from us really rather quickly, then phone and leave a message or call during business hours. 450-621-8283. There is a 1-800 number for North America. You can also include myself, marketing people, or technical, but really do put in support. It's really important. As always, if you have improvements to suggest in Margill, if there are irritants, really send us your suggestions. We'll take them under advisement. Okay, for today, so the game plan for the next 45 minutes, we're going to talk about what's available in terms of documentation. We're going to look at the major changes in version 5.7. We didn't get a chance, I believe, in September of last year, 25, to do the webinar. We're quite busy. So we're combining both together, 5.7 and 6.0. And the latest version is 6.0. That's the year 2026, and that's February 3rd. So it's pretty recent. If you don't have 6.0, there's no rush. Many of our clients will actually wait a few months before updating, and we wait a few months before we update our SaaS, our software as a service, to give time to find little bugs here and there. It's been well tested, but people like to wait sometimes a few months to, get a few of these quirks out. And we're going to have what we call, don't forget, these essential features, which is like kind of more or less of a training at the end. I always like doing that at the end to make sure people use these essential features in Margill. In terms of information on our website, the knowledge base, our website has been redone. There's a knowledge base, and there are over 100 articles, videos, questions, Q&As, special scenarios, special calculations. So you go to our knowledge base and you click here, Margill Loan Manager, and you can use keywords to find the words that you're looking for. The white paper on interest calculations. This is something I wrote back in 2008, and it's been printed. It was published in the Real Estate and Law Industry Report, and the version we have online is updated once in a while when we find new interesting aspects about interest. So we explain everything from simple interest, compound interest, day count. So all these elements which people don't really know, we talk about them in an easy way in this article, in this paper. The user guide. don't forget, we're now on version 6.0. We had version 5.7 and then 6.0. We skipped directly to 6.0. The user guide is only up to 5.6. People don't really read the user guide, but you can consult it and see a specific section. It's quite useful for that, but you don't read the whole thing. It's like 1,200. The next one will be 1,500 pages. User 6.0, user guide 6.0 is a work in progress, but we still have many months before this is published. Release notes. It's really important to consult this. If you go to margill.com/get, it's a shortcut. You have the loan system here. This is where you can update the software. You have a quick start user guide, and you have the release notes. So you click here, and you have everything that we discussed today and a lot more in these release notes. The way I look at release notes is I look at something, doesn't interest me, I don't care. Oh, this one's interesting. Then I dig deeper into it. What's in version 5.7? I think the 10 slides, it's simply a table of contents. So we're going to have images. This will be otherwise quite boring to look at. So this is new, this is new, this is new, user management, etc. Technical, which we'll cover afterwards also. This is version 6.0 major developments. Don't worry, when I get to it. Many things to simplify your life, etc. Improvement, special requests, great. Security, and there we go. Let's jump into it. All right. So in version 5.7, which has been out for the past 6-8 months, depending if you're an early adopter or not, we now have what we call the cash concept, the cash payment. So under line payment statuses, we now have a new column called cash payment, and you check whether they're cash or not. For example, if it's paid, normally by check, by ACH, it's a cash payment. As opposed to bad debt or write-off, bad debt is a payment. It's payment number 4, but which you rename to bad debt. So this is not a cash payment. It's actually money lost, of course. So you say, okay, I uncheck the cash here. Or a balance to a new loan, or you've forgiven some principal. So all these would be isolated as non-cash items. So when you create a report, this is really for reporting, there are fields, and there are over 20 cash fields. You'll see this as cash like that. So these fields will allow you to say, okay, I want all the interest paid cash. It will add up paid by credit card, paid ACH, paid cash or whatever, paid by check. It'll add them up all together and give you the interest paid. So you don't have to use equations anymore. So there are quite a few of those. And a little aparté in terms of, there's a field, I forget when this was it 5.6? I forget. You now have fields description. So you can go in here under reports and say, I want to put in the word cash, and it'll show all the fields where there's cash. But it could be anything else, of course, interest or whatever. That's a little aparté. Variable, if you guys are using variable interest rates, it's a pretty advanced feature. So I'm using a variable interest rate module. And the contract says I have to adapt they're called rate adjusted payments. I have to adjust my payments as my interest rate changes over time. So I can tell the system, recalculate the due payments to reach a balance, a final balance of X or 0 as my rates change. So if you had, for example, an unpaid payment and my usual payments are $100 or £100, they would remain $100 or £100 because it's simply an unpaid payment. But if you activate this option, when the rate changes and the rate goes up by 500 basis points or 50 basis points, I never really understood that one. Anyways, half a percentage. My rate, my $100 payment would become 100 something, $103, for example. So you could use that and it would reach a balance of X, or so that's the existing balance, or 0 to get back to 0 afterwards. So, you also have options. If it is an unpaid payment, it could recalculate your payments also. It's called line behavior. I won't talk about this here. Just know it exists if you're not already using it. Simple interest capitalized to principal. Margill includes compound interest, what we call the effective rate method. Simple interest, US rule, the same thing. Simple interest capitalized. And now in version 5.7, simple interest capitalized to principal. And let's go look at an example here. If you use that option under advanced, you'll see your lines where we capitalize are yellow, not green or blank. So for example, my usual payment is $6,300. In this case, I only paid $500. The interest is $1,635. That's the accrued interest from these dates. So I had a shortfall of $1,135. So my balance increases by $1,135. And this would usually go to balance due interest. It would go to my due interest here. But since I'm capitalizing, it's going to reduce it back to 0, and it's going to get capitalized right here. So my interest automatically becomes principal, which you shouldn't use that much. I find it's an old method of working. Some people still use it, but if you're using this method, be very careful that your accountant understands this and that you understand it. It's not something you just use every day like that. It has to be really thought about. Very important, because my balance, my principal is never 251. It's 250, unless I've paid some of the principal. Okay, so you just have to be careful when you're using this. Equations, if you guys are using equations, you can now use dates. So I could say, I want to know the number of days between from the origination date, well, from today to my origination date. So I can produce this in my reports. In the results format, I could also have a date format. So I could say a loan origination date plus 10 days gives me this other date. So instead of days between, it would give you a date format here. If you're in Canada with the company called VoPay or one of our partners, the ACH partners, you can send directly, you can do an e-transfer directly to the recipient's bank account. And I believe in the US, this could also be activated if you work with VoPay. I forget. So this would go directly to the borrower's bank account instead of going through an interact with an email or a mobile number. Because what happens with some bad clients, let's say, they could say, oh, I never received your email, but they actually deposited the amount to their wife's account. So it would be kind of, it never went to my account. So when it goes to an account specifically, there's no way out. There's no way to repudiate this amount. Also with VoPay, you can send payments in various batches. So you could say, I'm sending 10,000 today. I want to send another 10,000 in 1 month, another 15 in 2 months, etc. You can activate this kind of feature. Pre-authorized payments, again, ACH with VoPay or transfer in Canada, in the US. You could say if the number of unpaid payments is equal to or greater than 2 or 3, whatever, then don't send my future ACH payments. Block them. Either block them or highlight them. Prohibit or highlight. It's up to you. Totals. This is something I use personally quite often. I'm doing exercises with clients and customers, and we want to see how much money there is for either in the main window. I highlight all these loans, and I will know the balance at current date for these loans. So on top, if I right click, it's going to give me 5 records selected, and there's my balance at current date, or anything else I want to pick up, which is a numerical. Same thing for the payment schedule. I highlight my lines, my payment lines. I right click in the proper column, and I get the sum of whatever 8 rows gives me this much. When you're adding or inserting new payments in the system, one of our clients used to have, his customers used to pay, this customer, for example, used to pay monthly. So every month he paid $100. Now there's a new agreement in which the customer says, I'm going to pay you now. Instead of being monthly, I could say every 2 weeks. I could say every 14 days here. So 14 days, instead of paying $516, I could put in $200 every 14 days. If I check this box, save as default, the next time I add new lines, this will automatically be 14 days as opposed to monthly if I check these boxes. So when things are renegotiated, it's quite practical not to have to see what is the new deal. There are also multiple new options with when you add new payments at the end with the right mouse click. As always, I won't read these out. They're in the release notes. New variables. This is something people have been asking for a while. When we do forecasts, financial forecasts, with the older version 5.6 and before, you could do pretty good forecasting. But we actually weren't pretending, we weren't simulating paid payments. So what would have happened in some cases, that the upcoming payments could have paid non-cash transactions, or they wouldn't have paid fees, interest, and principal in the right manner. Now what we're doing with these new fields called due payments, principal to be paid as if paid, and the column fees, so there are 6 or 8 of these, or 9 or 15, I forget. We simulate the due payment as paid, and it's going to do what it should be. It should be going to cash, non-cash. This much is going to go to interest, this much to principal, this much to fees. So it really distributes as it should be. So it's really, really precise, quite a useful thing. And you must activate this feature in Tools, Settings. Only an administrator can activate this. And you'll see when you activate it, your database is going to have to refresh. So don't do this during the day if you have thousands of loans in the database, because it'll take you half an hour to refresh. So do this at end of day. Also in version 5.7, if you don't know this already, of course you can put colors on loans, and you can now put a tag. So red would be urgent, green would be everything's okay, we need to follow up, etc., etc. You could also say, I only use 5 colors of the 40 or some odd colors, so you could hide the other ones. And if you say, I use the red always, because it's a bad customer, we don't like that, but anyways. So you can move them up or down based on what you want to do. In the record list personalized, this is my favorite report. It's called the record list personalized. Sometimes you see a number and go, how come I see a 0 or I see a strange number here? Why is it so high? So you can right click and open the record, and it's going to show you in read only. It's going to show you what happened during the loan. So it's good to see, a quick view of why I have this strange number. Why is my principal minus 77,000 here? I could open it and see why this is happening. This guy's not paying enough this month. Nightly automatic reports. Now I can say, I'm sure you guys use automatic reports. If you don't, you can send out reports automatically to various types of reports to your accountant, to whoever needs your reporting. And you'll see we can also send it to customers now with statements, and we'll cover this a bit later on. But the new feature here is really, I can say, I want to include in this monthly report or whatever, X days before the current date to X days after the current date. So this allows me to tell my customer, last month you paid this much, and you will be paying this much that's coming up in the future as a due payment. So it could be useful for you to have. Column fees as a percentage. If you guys are using column fees and you want to say it's a percentage of the balance of the preceding line or whatever, all the ones with percentages, it used to be 4 decimal points. Now we put it up to 8 so that when the number is calculated, you'll have the exact penny. So with 8 decimals, you can do that. With 4, you're off by a penny here or there, or 2 pennies or whatever. User management, I don't know why we even put this one. It's really specific. You're allowed to say Joe is allowed to see only certain types of records. He's only allowed to see these creditors. What we added is if a loan doesn't have a creditor in there, well, he can either see or cannot see if he doesn't have creditors. Big deal. Pretty advanced stuff. We added de facto union in the marital status under borrower. Technical perspective. In version 5.6, we had a temporary issue where the MFA, multi-factor authentication, had disappeared because of our development tool. So in version 5.7, it was fixed. So we recommend MFA, quite useful. A pain, we know, but you go in with your phone, you have MFA. It's a lot safer. And nowadays, we have to be as safe as possible. There's a new user called install. So this allows a technician who updated your system, for example, to click in, log in as install with this password that you create, and they would be able to launch the system and it'll do all its updates, and they wouldn't have access to the data. So they'd say, oh, everything is up to date, you're all good. You have to specifically create the username called install with a password, and you give it to your technician. That's all. New fields, we created a bunch of new fields. You can see the release notes. We won't go into that. Minor features here. Let's see what's interesting here. I won't read this. Just go again and see what's happening. I'm trying to think if there's anything interesting, really. Anyways, I won't go over that. No, we don't really have time. Oh, version 6.0. Okay, so this will go on. We have about 20 minutes left, which is perfect. Plenty of time. Don't worry about it. Okay. A major change if you guys are including sales tax. For example, if you finance cars or leases, you could have your sales tax in the system. For example, you've got a 5% sales tax. You enter a payment of 105, automatically the tax will be calculated to 5%, and my principal will be $100, 100 pounds or whatever. You could also have multiple taxes. So if you got a federal tax, a state tax, you could have two of them, and so it would automatically calculate what needs to be done. If the amount is usually 105, so $100 plus tax, 5% tax, but then the person only pays 75, so you change your payment from due payments from 100 to 75, the new sales tax will be calculated. If you click on the little question mark here, you have a good explanation of how this works. So this could be used for other things than sales taxes, but it's usually for sales taxes. An automatic penalty. This will be useful. I know people in Africa will like it, and in Asia, they use this quite a bit more than in North America, it seems, or Europe. But you'll probably use it in North America, Europe also. So it's a penalty on outstanding. Let's look at the example. It's in advanced here in the loan. So, for example, my usual payment is, okay, it's $721 is my usual payment. So here, there's no outstanding, perfect, zero, good. And here, this could have been, I didn't activate the feature at this point. I activated here. Okay, so my outstanding is $721, and I'm saying it's a 10% on this. So the 10% is on $721 from $12.02 to $01.02. So about well, a month, exactly a month. Yeah, 02 is my day. This is month, this is the day. So it would be $6.01 on 721 for these two dates between line 143 and 144. And this amount is added as interest. So it's automatically added in the interest. Interest is usually 305, let's say 303, whatever. So notice it adds $6 or £6 to my accrued interest. So it's factored in, be careful. And so forth. So then there's a little more interest here. And then at the end, he's paying back. So my outstanding becomes zero because I was expecting 721. I received a lot more. It brings my outstanding back to zero. And now I no longer have a penalty interest. In column fees, automatic column fees, we added, this was for a client. We went to give them a training a couple of days in the Pacific. You know who you are. It's a percentage of the expected payment. I have an unpaid payment. I was expecting $1,000 and I charge 5% of this expected payment. It's in automatically. So a very useful feature. It can be used in conjunction with these other types of transactions. It works quite well with the unpaid portion, but that's for a partial payment. Or you could say it's always of the expected payment. In variable rates, we have what we call step up or step down. More for, I believe, our clients in Africa. They use this quite a bit. It really works as if you're saying, I have a variable interest loan. It's based on prime rate plus X%. But what happens is over the years, I could go in and say, every 4 months, every 6 months, every year, I say, okay, it will be grace plus 1% for year 1. This is the wrong date, but for year 2 in 2027, it'll be the bank rate plus 1.5, and in 2028, it would be bank rate plus 2% or minus 2%. So it's pretty advanced. Variable rates. If you guys are using variable rates for the past couple of years, don't forget when you update the interest rate, all your loans will be updated automatically to the new rate. If you had done an error, so instead of putting 4.3, you put in 4.0, you go, oh no, I messed up. You updated 1,000 loans. It's a pain to fix. It would have been a pain to fix. So now we created at last this emergency fix in which if there were multiple rates here, you can reapply a new rate, you can modify the rate, or you can delete this old rate and all your loans will be automatically updated. It's really an emergency option when you update variable rates. Do it with great caution and limit who is allowed to change the rates. And before somebody does change the rate, one person should be allowed double, triple, quadruple check so you never have to use this. But it's there just in case. We now have a floor rate, and so a max and a minimum, a floor and a cap. Whether you're using fixed rates or variable rates, it's really more for variable rates. So I'm using fluctuating rates and I tell the system it's a maximum of 12% and minimum is 3%. So if my rate goes down to 2%, it'll stick to 3. Margill will say, hey, I have to stick to 3% or max 12. Document merge, I mentioned it earlier in the automatic overnight reports. Now you can put in document merges, and you can send them automatically to your customers. So if you were doing this at 5 o'clock every night, don't forget on the 2nd of each month, you send your statements, your invoices. Now you can actually tell the system, do it automatically and send them over. Before activating this type of feature, always double, triple check that your automatic emails are properly set up, that the form is good, that the numbers are good. Before I automate, I always double, triple check to make sure everything works properly. Because then a human doesn't control anything anymore. The system does it automatically. New feature also in terms of when we have custom fields with menu type fields. So here's my menu. It's actually 100, 200, 300, 400. So this doesn't mean anything. 100, what does 100 mean? It's actually tourism. And 200 is retail, and 300 is something else, something else, something else. So it's a way to report these numerical values or something else, but that the user, when they type in data, when they select their field, they don't know that, oh, 100 represents tourism, etc. It can also be used with equations. So for example, I could say, if my loan is a tourism loan, I have this condition, I have to multiply by 2. But it's if a retail loan, it's an if or an if not. If it's 200, then I do something else. That's a little more advanced, but these are things that can be done eventually. Of course, we're there to help you guys if you need some kind of training, if you think you need these kinds of things, because this is quite advanced when we talk about advanced equations. Conditional alerts, a very recent update. For example, a conditional alert is warn me if something happens. So this is if the number of due payments, actually it should have been called due payments here. If the number of due payments is 1, then notify me. If the number of unpaid payments equals 2, then notify me. So this is my equation. So here I'll see number of occurrences of due is 1. It means this guy has 1 payment left. And so I have to call him to say, hey, Joe, you have 1 payment left. Let's renegotiate or whatever. So this would pop up in the morning. Go, oh, all these loans have 1 payment left. Or all these guys have 2 unpaid payments. Uh-oh, I have to be careful with them. Or 3 or 5 or 10, whatever. EFT, we now have, in the UK, we have what we call a BACS. I call it light. It's a small BACS. It's a pretty straightforward file for the UK EFT payments. In South Africa, we work with a new provider called Standard Bank. If you're from South Africa, you know Standard Bank. They're the main bank over there, I think. And of course, in Canada, we have some. In the US, we have, we use VoPay. And in the US, we also have, I forget the word. What is it? Anyways, we use NACHA files, of course. Advanced queries. This is a fun one, in which if you got advanced queries allows you to select only specific records to produce a report. For example, I'd say I want to have all my loans that were originated in January 2026. The way an advanced query would have worked before this happens, before the floating period exists, is I would have put in where my origination date is from January 1 to January 30th, 2026. And every time you say, oh, now I have to change my query to put in February and March, etc., and so forth. Now instead we say, okay, I allow it to say it's this calendar month or the last calendar or next calendar month. I can also have for the weeks, I can also have fiscal years. I could say from February 1st to December to January 31st. So it's a floating. We don't see them all here, but there are quite a few in here. So again, a really useful feature can be used for pretty much anything. Floating is cool. Defaults. We've noticed when we give training, we notice that some customers have, they have simple interest loans, they have compound interest loans, sometimes on purpose, sometimes not on purpose. So what we've done is we created for the admin user only admin can set this up. He now has this little button here said defaults for all users. So in advanced, the method, I always want compound or simple or whatever, the year base and my day count. So if he presses on this, all my users will be reset to these default settings. So Joe won't be in simple and Mary in compound. They'll all be uniform. Although users can decide to change them afterwards. So they can't be mandatory. So Joe, you reset everything to normal compound, but Joe decides to put it simple, well, he'll be simple because Joe does simple interest loans, whereas Mary does compound interest loans. But at least you can standardize for a while, unless people voluntarily change something. So it'll avoid errors. Payment schedule. You can actually now change, this is the payment schedule. Remember how we have the line status, for example, it's called line status. That's the name of my header. You can change it to something else. If you don't like the word line status, call it type of transaction. Or if you don't like mathematical principle, you can change it, August, that doesn't make sense. You could call it to increase or dip or reduction of my balance. Be careful though, even if you call payment date something else, we will not change my fields called payment date. We won't change it. It'll still be called payment date. And line status will still be called line status. It won't be called type of transactions. So be careful when you make a change. And just changing the word from payment date to whatever else will not change its nature. It'll always be the payment date for real. It's just a way of customizing the system to your needs. My favorite report, as I mentioned, is record list personalized with, that's my favorite report. And people they could create dozens of these reports. What happens is after a while, this guy left. So let's say Joe created the report 5 years ago. He left. Nobody knows what this is called, what this report is, why we're using it. So users can decide to say, I want to hide those reports. I don't want to see them for me personally. So you can hide them and you can move them up or down. So this is the only one I use is accounting report on an accrual basis. I would hide everything else and put this in first position, or I keep only a few and then put my more important ones on top and the other ones are not. And this is by user. Okay. Record list. Okay, this is a nice one also. When you create the record list, my favorite report, you could say, I want to produce a report based on record type, auto loan, business loan, personal loan. So this would be one of the fields. You could say, I want to show the subtotals by something. And I could say, don't show me 1,000 loans. Show me only the total for my active loans, my closed loans, or whatever field you're choosing for subtotals. So it'll reduce from 1,000 loans to 3 subtotals. And then you can export this. So it's a lot faster to get really quick reports. Something else, when you create your report, you could say, I want to exclude records if the data is 0, if the transaction data is 0. What we've done, we've isolated what are transaction fields versus non-transaction fields. So if my interest is 0 and my only field is interest, it'll ignore it, even if John is the borrower, if I check this box. So if I have multiple fields with transactions and one of them has an amount, then of course it'll be included. If they all have zeros, then it'll be excluded. So you won't see old data, which is irrelevant for your report. So it'll reduce again the number of results. If you're using PAD pre-authorized debits, you can now put a color. You right click and you put a color on your loans. It's just faster. So this guy didn't pay, for example. So instead of updating the loan and going back to the main window and changing from no color to red, you can do it directly in your rejection window. Not the rejection, the PAD rejection window is only if you're using one of our partners, VoPay or Perceptec or Transfer in Canada or the US. Line statuses, we've added 5 additional principal line statuses. Now we're up to 90, or I think we're up to 100 line statuses. Don't forget, of course, you can hide them from the menu. This has been there for a while. We also allowed you to rename these guys. The one called principal, additional principal loan, paid payment, and additional payment. They could be renamed to something else. I could rename this to something else. Just a little more convenient. New fields, I won't mention this. One I like though is balance of my column fees at current date. And you have these other ones also. If you have many users, not just 1 or 2 users, there's now an option in Tools, Users, there's a little button on the left that shows you a report of your various users and their permissions. Just a quick way to see it. What we've done, we put colors. So when it's in red, you'll see what the difference is. When it's in red, it means it's an extra permission. And when it's in green, it's a lower permission. So anything is pinkish or red, it means I'm giving extra permissions, which adds a level of danger. It's relative, but one, for example, is cannot delete. If you allow them to delete records, well, then it's dangerous. Okay, we have logs in the system. We log just about everything. One thing we didn't log before version 6.0 was borrower data. So, for example, the Social Security field, there was an error in the old value. You change it to the new value, so it'll give you the information on borrower data. There's a log on that. Notice how Social Security can be hidden. There are fields to make it confidential, and that's in an older version, so that's why it's not explained here. Passwords. As we progress with security, SOC 2, with a bunch of ISO formats, ISO security levels. Some will force you to change passwords every X number of days. So the admin can go in and say, okay, I force you to change passwords every 90 days or whatever day. You can test it for 1 day or every year. It's an option. Also, we've added emails in the user management. So if somebody forgets their password, he doesn't have to run to admin to put in a new password. He can reset it by email. When you produce a report what we call a payment schedule. You print it off. You notice how in the standard one, you'd have Margill Loan Manager, the date, and a bunch of things. Now you can actually customize this. So instead of calling it Margill Loan Manager, you can put in your company name here. Finally, so we're getting there, 5 minutes left. So fundamentals, principle to remember. This is more or less of a training. So I always repeat this because I want this to be ingrained in your minds. Don't forget, you can personalize your main window. So I've seen some customers who are still in an old, they have 5 or 10 columns, which was the demo version from 5 years ago. They haven't added anything. My main window for me is my dashboard. So I add new columns. You can have it 1,000 columns wide. So you say my record summary window, that's my main window. I want to add these fields or take away these fields. You can also personalize your results tables. That's the payment schedule results. You could say, I want to add these columns, delete these columns. Right now, the payment schedule has about 100 columns, or I think 60 columns. So there are too many. So you say, I don't want to see these guys. So you click on this icon and you say delete, 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 or move them around. It's quite useful for that. My philosophy, less is more. So I want to see the least amount of data possible. Personalize your records. When you open up a loan on top, so on the top part of your loan, you've got our number, so the MLM ID. That's all we see sometimes. But no, you can add the guy's first name, last name, the type of loan, your own unique number, and who the creditor is. So there are quite a few options to add on top. So it's good to easily see who my borrower is, for example. As we get older, and I am getting older, we all are, you can use the big T, small t to make things bigger, either in the main window or in the payment schedule. This should be already ingrained for anybody who's using the system, the post-payment tool. I've seen when we give some training, we see people going in each loan, opening the loan, changing it from due payment to paid payment or partial. They open up 50 loans. They go, no, 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 don't do that. Imagine always you had 1,000 or 5,000 or 10,000 loans. You use the post-payment tool to show you all what's upcoming or what should be paid, and you change them all in bulk to paid, late, partial, etc. It's the most important tool of the software unless you're using our ACH or electronic funds transfer tools, where often they'll be changed automatically from due to paid. Use global changes to mass change data for records, borrowers, and now in the newer version for creditors also. So let's say you want to add a phone number or a cell phone number. You wouldn't open up Joe, Julie, Mary. You would have an Excel sheet, 2 columns, the unique identifier, and the new data, and you just upload everything. So you would upload your 1,000 new cell phones in 30 seconds, as opposed to doing it manually. We mentioned queries. Use advanced queries when you do your reporting. We've seen customers, they go in the main window, they select 20, 50 loans, they produce the report, they sort the loans, and they say, I only want to see active loans or active loans, which are car loans, then they produce the report. But no, don't do that. Create a query instead. So your query would be active loans and car loans. That's your query. And you cannot mess up with that. So it'll do it automatically. My database has 103 records. This would only pick up 33, for example. These are all active loans originated after something. This is my query. Do not forget line statuses. They're important. I think you all know what line statuses are. There are various types: due payments, paid payments, unpaid payments, principal added, interest added, and others. If you change the nature, if let's say you call it paid payment, or sorry, you call others, you call it paid something else, paid by Bitcoin, other X will not pay interest and principal and fees. It'll pay something else. It'll pay itself. It's going to reduce your principal. It's going to reduce your balance, but it won't put it where it's supposed to be. It won't pay interest, principal, and fees. It's really quite important. When you add a new line status or you change a line status, always revise your reports and your equations, because this is fundamental in the system. Again, with line statuses, manage your payments. When I see this, I panic. It's very simple. You see this in pink, panic, pink, panic. It works. So what this means, it means I have unmanaged records. I have due payments in the past. I should never have due payments in the past. My past payment should be managed, in which due should become paid, unpaid, partial, late, etc. You can give yourself a leeway of 10 days or whatever, but no matter what, I never want to see this in pink. If you see this in pink, in theory, you should not produce any reports because you have unmanaged loans, which means you'll have bad data in the end, more or less. Pink is no good. Don't forget, overnight tasks. If you're not using it, you have big databases. Overnight tasks will perform operations overnight as opposed to in the morning and produce reports automatically. It'll do backups, etc., etc. Send out automatic emails. Sorry, your phone is ringing. Use docx for your merge documents. Fine. You can block your users from changing historical transactions. In a payment schedule, you could say, I do not allow my people to change anything that's older than 30 days. So all your transactions 30 days from today's date will become grayed out. So they won't be able to change them by accident or whatever. And of course, some users, you can tell that you can give them the rights to change them nonetheless. So you block it for most users, but not for everyone. You can set compulsory fields. For example, I must enter a loan type. So you can set these up. You can send out automatic emails. I hope most of you know that, or SMSs to borrowers X days before a payment is due. Dear Julie, don't forget a payment of 125 is due, is coming up on February 28th, on March 1st. If you cannot pay, please call me ASAP. Or if a payment bounces, dear John, the payment bounced, call me so we can take an arrangement. And you can send him automatically, you can send him manually in bulk, a happy birthday or Merry Christmas. Start automating data import and updates via your CRM, Salesforce. We're plugged in with Salesforce. We have a bunch of different ways to import data automatically and export data automatically. Again, that's called automation. You automate only when you have volume. Use e-signature. We have an e-signature in Margill. Very useful if you have any kind of volume. It's integrated in the document merge. Quite useful for that. Finally, we're getting there. 2 minutes left. If you are using Margill on your server, don't forget Margill is available in the cloud. It's on Microsoft Azure. Data is hosted in Canada. It's considered a safe country. And for the European Union. Also, we will be soon launching or eventually launching a server in the US. So these are things that can be, if you say, I work from home, I work remotely, I use VPNs, which are really, really slow. you can transfer your license to the cloud. We do the backups, we do the updates, we manage the security, and we are now SOC 2 Type 2. And you can access anywhere, Margill from anywhere in the world, even when you're on vacation. Yay! Finally, training is key. I see customers sometimes that goes, no, I don't want to spend on training. And then they say, okay, let's do a bit of training. And it's just a disaster sometimes. They just do anything. And I'm exaggerating, but training is so important. Take a few hours. Take a 3-hour training block, which you use an hour at a time. You'll see, we'll look at your database. We'll fix up stuff. We'll give you tricks. You'll gain dozens of hours every year and you have better data. We offer remote training and we go on site. We travel all the time. So we spend 2-3 days with you. It's well worth it. And that's it. This is where you can consult the release notes, margill.com/get. That's the big link. Questions, support at margill.com is always the best thing. We're not always in the office. And if you have any questions, we can add them in our knowledge base, of course, anonymously. So I hope you enjoyed this webinar and feel free to contact us anytime. Of course, we're there to help you. Version 6.0, take your time. There's no rush. Maybe wait a month or two and then update. Unless you see the features are really, really useful for you, we welcome you to download at margill.com/get. Again, thank you very much. last thing maybe, if you like our software, please send us comments. If it helps us so much, they're really, really valuable for us. You could send us an email and go, Mark or David or whoever, can you tell me where I can put a comment? We'd really, really appreciate it. They're very valuable for us. All right. Thanks again, and feel free to contact us. Thanks. Bye-bye.